Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da.
What were you
Ding,
saying?
ding.
You said, "Are you a standout?" No, I'm not. Hey, I'm Jens, and I'm Ashlee, and we stand up to stand out. We are the standouts.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Jens, you are an innovation expert. In my eyes,
I am.
you are
Thank you.
definitely an innovation expert. And innovation can be broadly, it's a broad word. It's a
Huh.
very broad word. But from your perspective, can you tell us what is innovation?
Yeah. First and foremost, it's a buzzword. It's used from so many people in so many contexts in innovation, in
Mm.
organizations, and mainly because it needs to be written down inside of the strategy. And the strategy next to sustainability. But for me, innovation, it starts with being a mindset from the perspective of, for me, I don't care too much about the processes. Not that they're not important, but I think the processes is like secondary or third order. It starts with the leadership and the mindset of an organization of how do you transform, how do you think towards the future, and how do you adapt the company organism towards the future. So that's
Mm.
that's where it's like, and then from an innovation perspective, for me, it's transformative innovation rather than small step by step improvement, though that it is important as well. But it starts with the human in the center of everything,
Love
if that
it.
makes sense.
It makes so much sense. And I
Uh,
feel like whenever I hear the word innovation, I also in my mind associate the word adaptability,
Absolutely.
which
Yeah.
is so important to be able to adapt and then recreate and thrive and just it's almost like a mushroom. You know, mushrooms are like living and breathing and then dying and then they bring us back to life and then they just like overcome the you know what I mean, the carcasses of things and then they're like, yeah, it's life again. Look
Yeah.
at me, I'm a flower.
No, but I think it's super important to have this in a company environment,
Mhm.
have this innovation way of thinking, innovation way of, I always call it as an organism, because for me it's innovation has not a purpose in itself. It's more about how do you build a business that's creating impact in this world, which is at least for me, all businesses in this world should be focused on impact in the world, not just impact on the wallet of the founder.
Mm.
So what are your thoughts on the importance of innovation in organization and the definition from your perspective?
Innovation for me is more, I mean, it's very, I like that you said it's a mindset. And I also put it together with the process of being able to look at where you are and be okay with it,
Hmm.
but then being able to make a change and an adaptable change where everyone is on board and everyone can understand what needs to happen. And innovation is great because it's really being in a position where you're not sure,
Yeah.
but you come up with an idea where you're like, listen, I have no idea, but I want this to succeed so much that I'm willing to then now take everything that I have and put it into this idea and
Hmm.
to make it work.
Yeah.
It's always that make it work. It's make it work. And that's really important.
And that's, I think that's super important from a human perspective. Maybe we go into the leadership part after this, but I think it's important for an organization, for a business that is facing, if we take the world the last 2 years, the world is radically changing with the impact of the pandemic. Digitalization is speeding up in ways we have never seen before. Yes,
Mhm.
digitalization was important before and technology, but now the adaptability, to your point, is even more important because things are changing so fast. The outside world, hey, we need to have a lockdown. We need to do this. We can't go to the office anymore, which is all impacting a business
Mhm.
in different ways. And depending which business you are, it can destroy your business. So if you, as a human member of that business, leader of that business, are not adaptable and able to go with the flow, if we call it like that, you have problems, and problems from an individual level, and problems as well from a leadership structure, and problems as well with the employees working in that organization.
Right. Which is why innovation is so important, because it's internal and external.
Yeah, 100%.
1000%. And if you can focus and concentrate on the internal and really help employees understand, then whatever is external, it becomes, not everything is easy, but it becomes easier, because it's
Yeah,
like a tennis match. Like, okay, this is coming to us, no problem. Are we ready to serve everyone? Let's bang it out.
yeah, yeah. Agree. Let's go into leadership. So if we take innovation and then the innovative leader, what is an innovative leader for you?
An innovative leader is someone who, there are days where you're having, I often remember this, having these like company, every Thursday, you kind of have a check-in or something like this, and like sales are down, and it's like depression mode in the company, and everyone's like, oh my God, am I gonna have a job tomorrow? What's happening? And then you have that person that comes in tomorrow. There's an email sent out at 8 a.m. and they're like, listen up. Yesterday was rough, but today we've got a plan. And this is the plan of action. We can do it. Don't you worry. Let's keep going.
Yeah,
For me, that is the definition of a leader, of someone who can assess the situation, have that mindset, as you said, to think differently, be able to set yourself in that mindset, because then there's all these other objections coming in, but you have to be able to ignore the objections. And then you have to be able to lead people in this positive direction of, maybe we don't know the outcome, but we're going to try.
yeah. Yeah, to add on to that, I think one part is, like you mentioned, the flexibility of the leader and the motivational part of the leader. But I think it's even if we go down, it's the leadership of the leader. It's not about taking, like you're most probably from a hierarchy perspective, the manager of an organization, of a team, whatever, depending where you are. But the leadership angle is more about how do you empower everyone to be
Exactly.
motivated, everyone to take the next step, everyone to find out how do we solve this situation, being flexible in their mindset as well.
And in that hierarchy of leadership, right? Because
Yeah,
as I'm speaking, I'm more so speaking about the hierarchy of like being on top of leadership.
yeah,
But
yeah,
in those roles of breaking it down into smaller ones, you got to be
yeah.
able to do that.
And I think that's both ways. If you're a leader
Right.
somewhere in the middle, it's like
Yeah.
you lead upwards and you lead downwards, if we call it hierarchy training.
Right. Right.
How important is it from your perspective of being in tune with yourself as a leader and
Yeah,
as an innovative leader?
you've got to be. You've got to be unbreakable. You've got to be unshakable. You do. You have to have this vision
Hmm.
that perhaps is so outside of the box, and which is innovation, right? Really coming up with ideas that most people would laugh away at first glance, like, this guy's crazy. So you have to have unshakable mental capacity to keep going when so many people are coming to you saying, let's sit down, let's have a talk. Let's bring in the investors. Let's bring in the board. Let's have these conversations of where we're assessing for if it doesn't work out as well. But the leader is always in the position to say, no, but it will. And that's
Yeah.
not an easy place to be.
Yeah. What
Inside
what
the
I
mind.
Yeah, what I like about that, because I do this since a couple of weeks, I read it somewhere. I mean, this daily goal setting, daily affirmations, I do this longer time already. But what I haven't done, I didn't do the 10x version of this. So I was listening. I think his name is Grant Cardone.
Mhm.
You don't need to love him. He's a very specific person. But I like his way of thinking, which is the 10x thinking. And he wrote a book about these things as well. And he's very much into sales, coming from the real estate world. But what is interesting for me is writing down every morning and every evening. I only have done it the mornings. Every morning, every evening, what are your goals? And then you put them 10x. So he was giving an example. Okay, so you want to have 1 million euro on your bank account put it 10x. That's your goal. It's not 1 million, it's 10x. So it's just fascinating when you do this every day, because it has primed me over time from a sports perspective. As an example, I said I want to finish an Ironman. I wrote this down every day. I did do that, which impacted my way of thinking. And you write it down as if you have done it already.
Mhm.
So having
Very
this
important.
10x perspective, something, it feels unreachable, but that also creates then, to your point, the action that is needed to get there. Because sometimes we, at least it feels for me, especially coming from the large organizations, sometimes it's just, I'm getting paid anyhow. I feel well. I have an amazing company. I have a well established um, brand myself and inside of the company. Why should I do the extraordinary step?
Mhm.
Why should I do everything I can to move this company forward? Because I'm getting paid the same thing like last month and next month. But I think that's something we need to change, maybe from an incentive structure, but even more from the human aspect of leadership inside of organizations. How do you think about 10x impact with your organization to whatever you're doing, and then create this um, like a magnetic effect which drags interesting people who are willing to stand out as well
Mhm.
into that company, and then you drive double as fast. And you see this, if we take Virgin with Richard Branson, he is an iconic leader dragging people in. And not everyone likes him as a personality, which you always have when
Yeah,
you're such an
that's
iconic leader.
normal. Right.
Same with Steve Jobs. But these guys have done incredible things.
They've done
Um,
it. Yeah.
and I think it's part of their big way of thinking, and then putting down the action that's needed
Mm.
and bringing everyone of the organization behind
Right.
them.
I love that example you use, because it's really interesting, going from something to then 10x. But
Mm.
if you can believe this 1 million, right? I'm just using the money terms.
Yeah.
You can believe you can make the 1 million. I mean, 10 to some people it seems like such a difference
Yeah.
and such a gap, but it's actually not. And that's the mindset that he's trying to explain to people. It's
Exactly.
like, you yeah, we can be here, but we can also be here, but being here and here, it's kind of the same. It's just, what do you believe? I mean,
Yeah.
you can believe you can make this, this can happen. It's nothing. And so that's such a great way of pushing the limits of your mind
Yeah.
to
And
understand that.
I've had the opportunity to work with, in the old days, the chief sustainability officer of IKEA Group,
Mhm.
Steve Howard, and he has an amazing TED talk for everyone who's interested. So what he was saying, when he built the first sustainability strategy on a global level, maybe not the first, but one that was the biggest impact for IKEA. And that was around, I don't know, 2011 ish. So it's a couple of years back. He was saying you can have 100% renewable energy, or you can say we're going for 90%. But then the whole organization will discuss, but we are in the 10% who can't reach it. So he was saying we're not going for 90%, we are going for 100%. And
Mm,
there's a clarity in this goal setting, and that's a bit towards this 10x, because at that time the whole total group of IKEA was far away from it. But it's very, very clear, there's 100% and 100% is the goal. So there's nobody negotiating, but I'm in the last 5% who can't do that.
right.
So I think that's also part of the leadership, being very clear on the goal setting, not just for yourself as a person, but the same as an organization, and
Yeah.
then getting everyone focused on that specific goal,
Right.
which requires extraordinary effort as well.
Yeah.
And
And
I
that's
think,
why we're important, because we come in and we help the whole entire company to get on that mindset and on that level, so that having those conversations becomes really easy and everyone's able to see like, oh no, but we are 100, instead of
yeah,
that little sparkle of doubt and everyone's just making this little bit of doubt. you know we have the power and the ability to believe in the impossible and believe that things can happen and be done. But we have to find the tools to understand how to unleash that within ourselves, which is why I love our company so much, is
Right.
because that's what we're really pushing people to do.
And to that point, I think sometimes you need to have this extra effort, the extra push to get you over this. If we take the IKEA example again, Steve was pushing the total management, the total IKEA group in front of him
Right.
with the way how he was an iconic leader at that time in IKEA. Um, and I think that's just a good example, which at least made a huge impact on me in my leadership career. To
Mhm.
have someone who is so iconic, he was with the way he was leading, he was dragging the internal talents into his direction because they loved it. Not because it was the sustainability topic, it was more his leadership approach with which dragged a lot of interested people inside of the total organization towards that direction.
Shout out
And
to Steve.
yeah, I mean he's awesome. I haven't talked to him for a while. No, I should.
Hey,
No, but
Steve.
it it's true. It's true
Yeah.
because I think this is what organizations need, and not just in a situation where it's tough, where you really need to restructure the organization. How do you create these leaders that are standing out on a day-to-day basis? And I know it's sometimes hard to have this energy and push for 20 years, but I think that's also where you then take the whole management team into account, which is changing over time every 4, 5, 6 years depending on what company you have. But I think it's not that just that one person needs this energy, this drive. You need to build a structure of leaders inside of an organization where if someone is not good, and not feeling like it, then someone else can take over or
Right.
is balancing it out with a
Yeah.
little extra. And I
Yeah.
think that's the magic of an organization. If you do this well and train, work with the leaders of your organization, focus in and helping them to drive the business forward,
Mhm.
inspire people, inspire all employees to get into that direction. I think that's super powerful. And that's, at
So
least in
powerful.
my experience, working with a couple of companies over the last 24 years, it's not too often happening. It's quite hard. It's quite seldom that you see that there's always one or two iconic leaders, but it's not that the total team is iconic and really
Right.
driving somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's something companies need to figure out how to do that. Long
That's so
answer.
hard. It's not hard. Just call us. Okay.
Of course.
No, but it's so important and it's so obvious, right? That's another important thing that people need to understand. It's obvious.
Hmm.
So, like, I just went last week to Avalanche, the cryptocurrency, like, whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious who's a leader and who's not. I mean, I'm so sorry to say, but it could be 6 people, same company, same team, one person. I know their name. I know what they do. I've got their card in my back pocket. I've got their Insta. I've got their LinkedIn.
Hmm.
I know exactly who they are, who they represent, what they do, and what's their why.
Yeah.
And that's so sad when you think back to the company but only remember that one person.
Yeah. That's often the case if you're in an external environment. And I think that's truly a missed opportunity from a company
Yeah,
perspective where you have this
exactly. Right.
extraordinary, let's call it
Right.
salesperson standing out, and then
Mhm.
others who are in the shadow. But I think it's more about everyone can be like this. And I've worked with teams where you see they're all in the same direction. They're all from an energy level beaming. And you think like, holy cow, what's going on in this room? So I've
Yes.
seen it happening.
But also I think that people, you find as humans, we want to connect. So you find yourself in different things. So
Huh.
if there's 6 people standing from a company, I should be able to really connect with at least one. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you and I are there, you're different than I am. So you should find someone in that 6 that you're like, wow, this one is amazing. It
Yeah.
shouldn't just be one standout, is what I'm trying to say. It needs
Yeah.
to be all of them stand out in their own right path.
Yeah.
Maybe someone's super talkative, awesome, but maybe the other one is just really awesome at his job and he's not that talkative, but he still stands out in his own
Agree.
unique way.
Yeah, agree. It's key.
Key.
Going from innovation via innovation leaders. Um, we talked before we went live as well of solving problems the human way. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, there's so many leadership development workshops and programs that are like qualities of a leader or transitional leader or flexible leadership and things like that, and that's all great, but how do you solve purpose? How do you solve values? How do you solve brand identity, confidence, forward thinking, planning ahead, overcoming obstacles, fear, failure, burnout, asking for help, motivation, customer service? There's all of these things that are involved that everyone needs to know. These are tools that everyone needs to have,
Mm,
and I really think it's important from a company standpoint. This is something that I've always valued within a company. If I'm working in a company, I should be able to go to one employee and say, "Hey, you know what? I need you for this event."
mm.
And they should be able to be like, "Me? All right, awesome. This is great." You know? But it's so true. It shouldn't be those same people that we're always picking and choosing.
Yeah.
These are skills that the whole entire company needs to have. And I honestly forget your question that you asked me, but I'm rambling.
That's okay. No, it was about the solving problems the human way.
There we go. The human way. How do you solve it the human way?
For me, it starts with yourself.
Thank you.
Um, but I have, I mean, I'm coaching people still, and what I often see is it starts with being self-confident, and self-confidence, not the played self-confidence, it's the self-confidence which is truly there,
Mhm.
where you truly from the inner perspective are confident in what you're doing, where it's not someone is saying something negative, I hate what you're wearing, or I don't like what you're saying, that is not hitting you. That's like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's your opinion, thank you very much, let's have a conversation. But it's not like scratching your ego, it's not hitting you. And I think it's that's just one part, but I think it's more about being in balance with yourself.
Yeah.
And then when you lead other people, you can do this from a confidence perspective,
Right.
your confidence with yourself, and therefore you give them confidence about themselves as well.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the human way for me is really a leader that is taking time. And we talked now until now a little bit more about the standout perspective of, hey, there's a transformation leader who is getting the big things done and moving towards. But I think they will never be able to do this. Again, Steve, he has taken time with the people, spending time with the people, taking care of the people. Without this, it's not going to work. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, the human part, where it's more about how how do we enable leaders in today's time taking time and taking care of their employees while being on a 10x environment and 10x focus.
Mm.
But I think it's really these two extremes in one direction will help to change the business environment.
And also, what is change, right?
Yeah,
Are we brushing the surface of change, or are we actually going for a true change? And if you're going for a true change, then it starts inside. It's real. It starts
yeah,
inside.
yeah,
It's internal, and then it comes out external. But it's easy to change things on the surface and sort of scrape it very quickly, where you're changing who you are at work, perhaps, but not necessarily changing who you are as a core element of a person.
yeah,
Because who you are at work could be just for the week, or just for that project, or just for 6 months while the other person is out on maternity. I don't know. It's you have to be willing to take that chance to change yourself, to understand that the evolution of you and yourself will then in effect come out in other ways. And you really have to want it. And if you want it and you work on it, it's not just going to be in work that you then see the change. It's going to be even internal in your own life.
Yeah,
How you
100%.
deal with people, how you communicate. I mean, all of it. It's such a such a cool thing. It is.
If we finish this episode up, in case someone is watching this or listen to it later on somewhere on audio or whatever, if you're interested in understanding how this works from a conceptual perspective, we talk now up and down and left and right everywhere. If you're interested into learning more how we put this into a process that enables you from a systematic way to do this in your organization, please reach out to us. We're happy to have a conversation, happy to share our thoughts and go deeper
Yeah.
and discuss that. Anything to add?
Don't be afraid. That's also the part of the standout. It's like, it's okay if you don't know. That's
Yeah,
the
true.
greatest thing. If you don't know, you can ask someone and someone 1,000% has an answer for you. Or if no one has the answer, we can just go find it. But
Yeah,
ask and understand that we're coming in a humanistic point of view to come in to say, hey, not all problems are going to be solved in a board meeting or with a whiteboard. If you
yeah,
really want change, you've really got to penetrate the people at a personal level and then insert innovation to help them overcome and adapt and find a new way to find different solutions to different problems.
yeah. Well said.
I'm on a roll.
Ashlee, thanks for today. See you again next week.
See you next week.
Ciao.
Ciao.